You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we're covering the science fiction action film Battle Los Angeles, directed by Jonathan Liebesman and released March 11th, 2011.
And you know what? You hadn't seen this before.
I had not.
I love it when I get to expose you to movies that, in some cases, you've never even heard of.
Right.
It's always fun to get to bring them to the table so you can have an excuse to watch them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew nothing about this movie at all. And it was just kind of, you were like, text, like, what if we covered this week? And I was like, sure. Sounds good. Don't know what it is. I'll just go in blind and see what happens. And I'm glad I did, because I actually really, really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I thought you might. I've been sitting on this one for a while. And then we've been doing things different and not like coming out weeks in advance, like a month or two in advance with all of the ones we're going to do. We've just been kind of like, okay, well, the next 2 weeks we'll do these two, which is a little different, but we're also still kind of mixing in all the different movies that fit within our genre and not just like doing all alien or all horror. You know, we're mixing it up still to make it fun.
Yeah, it felt like it was a great movie to fit into this slot for this episode, because it's been a while since I've done one like this. So it was perfect.
It is. It kind of took me back to the Tomorrow War a little bit.
Yeah.
Only
definitely.
with the aliens.
Less time travel.
Yes. Yeah. It was different, but I liked it too. So I'm excited for us to be able to break this all down.
Yeah.
So why don't we do that? Why don't we go ahead and break it down the way that we always do, with some production notes? So, Battle Los Angeles was filmed in Shreveport and Baton Rouge, Louisiana, as well as Camp Pendleton in San Diego, California. The director chose Louisiana because of financial advantages, so they actually recreated the streets of LA in LA. Like, you get it?
LA and LA. It was interesting because Shreveport is very close to where I am, and I've been there many, many times. And yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine the streets of Shreveport being Los Angeles. It's a very different city. But I mean, they pulled it off, I guess. I mean, as far as what we see, I mean, it's all foggy and misty and like smoky, and you don't really see much of the city scape other than the CGI big pulled out versions of it. So honestly, it really was kind of just down in small little streets and neighborhoods at first, and then, you know, kind of the freeway area. I'm like, okay, now with the big bridges and all that's, like, yeah, that looks like a freeway in, you know, Shreveport, which is, you know, West Louisiana, East Texas area. I was like, yeah, no, that's the kind of, you've been to Dallas, you've seen our bridges.
I've seen it. Yes, I have. Yeah.
This area loves our bridges crisscrossing over each other all over the place.
Yes. It's very interesting how it's set up down there. Not quite as intricate as Montreal is. Going to Montreal is a really different experience when it comes to the roads around there. But we will not go off on a tangent about roads all over the country in different cities that we've been to. We'll get back on task and continue talking about Battle Los Angeles. So the story was taken from a screenplay that was written by Chris Bertolini. It was based in part on a World War II incident called the Battle of Los Angeles, and was inspired by the documentary filming style in Black Hawk Down, Saving Private Ryan, and United 93. I could definitely see that in this
Yeah, no, I have a note in my stuff, which kind of doesn't fit under like character notes, so I can mention it. Yeah, I had it. No, I was like, you can tell, like this has a very handheld camera vibe to it on some of the quick zooms and pans and things, where it really feels like somebody's focusing a camera lens on something to catch some kind of action or a quick thing.
Yeah.
And I like that. I actually did really like it. It was kind of weird, but I was like, I dig it.
So Liebesman wanted the film to be a realistic look at an alien invasion, attack, war type film. I think he achieved that.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the first titles that was released in 4K. The budget was between 70 and 77 million, and it grossed 221 million at the box office. It's 116 minutes long. Pake, it's time for a synopsis.
All right. A squad of U.S. Marines becomes the last line of defense against a global invasion.
There we go.
Yeah.
Very simple. To the point. Okay. This is going to be an interesting conversation because while there's a definite lead character, there are so many what I would consider to be secondary characters that weave in and out of everything. It's not an ensemble, but it kind of is in some ways. So I think we're going to have an interesting conversation. We might jump around a lot because you know that we like to talk about characters and tell the story through the characters. This one, I think, could be a little bit different. So I guess we'll just give it a go.
Yeah, my notes are not the way I usually really like them to be, but we're going to have a great time anyway. We're going to have a good time talking about this movie. There are some definite, really good like emotional beats and story arc beats that I do want to touch on that will be great. But yeah, it's very hard to focus on just Michael Nance. Staff Sergeant Nance, it's hard to focus on just him because, he is the main character, the main character arc and like story beats are around him. He's the one that goes through growth, he was in this place, goes through something and ends here. And all the other characters play their roles in building his story. But also everything he does is involved in a team element of everybody else working with him and around him. So really most all of the notes about him are just, and then the whole team does this because they are a team. And that's a big part of this movie too, is showing teamwork and loyalty and following somebody and putting your trust in somebody. Even when you don't trust them, you still take that trust and put them in there in this situation.
Yes, I would agree with that. There's a lot about this movie, like you said. There are these heartfelt, tug at your heartstrings moments. There are moments of heroism. There's a lot of different emotion I had in watching this because it's very intense at times. And you don't get to know the characters quite well enough, especially the secondary ones, to form like the closer bond that you do with Nance, just because he's always the one that gets the focus. But I did find myself starting to care about this, pretty cool group. They were just getting ready to go to Iraq in like 2 weeks. One of them was getting married. So there's a lot to talk about with this. And we're going to do our best for it not to be a recap of the movie. We really want it to be, our character-driven story. So we're going to do our best.
Try to avoid a lot of the recap stuff, but no promises. I might fall into it a couple times. As different movies play out differently when you're trying to really discuss it and break it down. So we'll see. Of course, the movie does start, jumping us in right into it. I thought was interesting, where instead of building the characters and then having the event happen, it was like, oh, we're like right here in the middle of the event. Global attacks are happening. Last holdout for the military in the United States seems to be Los Angeles right here. Set it up really fast. San Francisco is down. Bummer, because we were hoping to go there in a couple of months, Daphne.
Yes. No, we need San Francisco.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, they're just going to throw us right in the middle of it. And then I was like, oh no, we do get a flashback to 24 hours before the initial attacks because we got to introduce ourselves to our characters. And of course, the first and most important in a way that we do meet is Staff Sergeant Michael Nance, Aaron Eckert. We meet him. He's feeling his age a little bit.
Yes.
He's ready to retire. He's kind of putting in his final notice, getting his release from the Marines. He's going to finish up this one last training assignment, and then he's out. Or so he thought.
I know. I liked them showing him dealing with his age a little bit because he's running on the beach and this whole squadron runs by him saying, "Hi, Staff Sergeant. Hi, Staff Sergeant." And he can't go any faster. Then he's icing his knees. And one of them says to him, "You're only as old as you feel." And he says, "That's what I worry about. I can't feel anything."
Mm-hmm.
And there were these clever little lines in there that were humorous, but mostly it's a pretty serious movie.
Yeah.
And Nance is pretty clear that he wants to retire. It seems like he went through something on a previous tour that we don't learn about all of it right away. But we do kind of maybe in the first third of the movie start to get the information that we need about what happened.
Yeah, it's a big part of his story arc and his growth is the fact that this previous mission that did not go so well, he lost pretty much. I mean, he lost his whole team, all of his men.
4.
He seems to be
4 or 5, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, like the sole survivor of this little group that went in on whatever mission, and so he's already holding that kind of guilt and the weight of that. Even though he knows within himself that he did everything that he could. And even when he's talking to Lockett earlier, later in the movie where he says, they were some of the greatest, best men, and I'm the one that made it out alive and none of them did. Isn't that some kind of cruel joke? That's the worst punchline of them all there. Is he feels like he should have, and if he would have, if he could have, sacrificed himself and replaced, taken the place of those men. And so this is kind of following him around like a dark cloud. He's been working on forgiving himself and moving on, but it's following him around just in the rumors and the way that other Marines talk about him when he's not there, and sometimes even when he is.
Yeah. They're not shy to talk about him losing men. And I feel like, well, especially in Lockett's case, he blames him for his brother dying. He blames him.
Yeah. So whatever, this thing that happened, it's following him around. And so he's ready to retire and just kind of get out from under all of it. But then these meteors, in air quotations, have started to hit the coasts all over, all hands on deck. He's being pulled back in. He's replacing another staff sergeant for some reason. I don't know if it was ever really...
The other staff Sergeant Beck was on leave. Mm-hmm. They didn't really say why. They just said that he was on leave. And so he basically is commandeered, or I'm sure that's not the word, but they basically tell him, even though the papers are signed and he is technically, done or almost done, they, they pull him back in because it's all hands on deck to fight this new threat because they thought it was meteors. Something came down inside the meteors, which reminds me of another movie that we should cover on this podcast at a later date, War of the Worlds.
Uh-huh.
It's very similar.
So it was interesting with him getting pulled back in. He's the staff sergeant, so he's not number one in charge. He is still under Martinez, who is the lieutenant there of this group of Marines, even though I think this is his first mission.
It is
as a lieutenant here. So he
was top of his class at school.
Mm-hmm. So he has a lot to prove. And so I'm sure somebody as decorated as Nance, even with the things that might be clouding it a little bit right now, is still got to be kind of, nerve-wracking just a little bit for Martinez.
He has to balance the fact that Nance comes with some baggage. This is Martinez's first, deployment with this team in this role as lieutenant. And what we haven't mentioned, that I'm going to mention now, is Lockett, who is in this platoon, is the brother of someone on Nance's team who passed away.
Yeah. And when we first meet Lockett, he's at his brother's grave. And so I was like, oh, he lost a brother, and he's doing this in his honor. And so when that moment comes where Nance is coming in and people are kind of talking, Linehan is the new guy. He's unaware of what's going on. So he was like, oh yeah, this guy's like a big deal, right? And then they're like, have you heard? And he's like, well, and then that's when he's like, but that, I'm sure, everything was fine and it's understandable. Not realizing that the brother of one of the men that was lost is right there in their group, in their little squadron here. So yeah, because you immediately see him like, oh shit, Lockett, sorry, I had no idea. And he's like, just drop it. It's not the conversation that needs to be had. And Lockett does an okay job at first, but there's definitely some snark there. He does take his opportunities to throw a little something at Nance when he has the chance to.
Yeah, he throws shade for sure. Like, that totally happens. And Linehan, he seemed out of his element the entire time.
Right.
The guys give him a very difficult time when they have this, what is it? In 2 weeks, they were supposed to go to Iraq. So before, because we get this flashback to before the aliens invaded, they're out, getting drunk, and there are some girls there, and they're having fun, but the guys are kind of poking fun at him.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives us kind of a little bit of a glimpse into the dynamic of this group. So you kind of see what Nance is going to be dealing with.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say it's like a bad dynamic.
No,
at all.
not at all.
Like, yeah, they're picking on Linehan, but it's like the little brother.
Yeah.
Where they're like, only we can pick on him, but if somebody else has something to say about
we got
will
his back.
Fuck you up. Like
Absolutely. Yeah. So they have this little group, and we get to meet one of them, which is Kevin Harris, played by Neo, the musician Neo. Yep. Is getting married to his girlfriend, and his best man happens to be Stavro, who's in the same platoon. Mm-hmm. So we get to go see them looking at flowers for this wedding that's supposed to happen before they deploy.
Yeah.
This is the glimpse we get.
I've got kind of just a list under like extra characters, just kind of as we ran through and met them. Because, Corporal, Stavro, and Harris, Gino, Anthony, Pesci, and Neo. We said Harris getting married. Stavro's the great unofficial planner. Then we meet Doc and Guerrero. Yeah,
because Guerrero is kind of looking at this beautiful girl on a screen and teasing Doc about it. Quickly learns it's his sister. Yeah, and of course, people might recognize Guerrero, especially in our podcast network and friend group, played by Neil Brown Jr., who was the leader of the Vatos, Guillermo, in the first season of The Walking Dead. Yes. Again, I know what happened with them. I mean, I know what they told us happened with them, but I still kind of want to see that. I kind of want a backstory there, even though it's been 12 years. Right. I feel like it's probably past due, but, it's okay. Yeah, and then we meet, Lieutenant Corporal Kearns, who is dealing with some PTSD and trauma a little bit, but is still working on trying to remain active in duty. He kind of feels like he's okay and can move through that. We don't really get any more story on that as far as what happened to him, but it's a nice little character building. We talked about Lockett, who lost his brother. Linehan, the young guy, played by Noel Fisher. He's been in some really fun stuff. He has. Shameless is one. He played a real creep on Law & Order SVU. Man, I remember that because I was still watching the show at that time. Oh my gosh. And I think back to my old Disney Channel days and stuff, and different things like that. He was the bully in Max Keeble's Big Move way back. Oh my goodness. That was a great movie when I was younger. And then there's also Emily,
and Mottola, who they call
Motorola. I love that. Like, it's perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're giving us this overview. I look at it like an overview of the characters. You're like, oh, okay, so hopefully, these guys will stay alive. That's not really how this works. Going into a movie like this, so you kind of have to realize that.
Yeah. Especially when they introduce you to this many characters, you're like, yeah, we're marking a bunch of these names off the list by the end of this movie. Like, ugh.
Yeah, we're marking a bunch of these names off the list like 30 minutes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, Lieutenant Martinez, we talked about, also has a baby on the way, which is kind of sad, knowing that he does not make it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was Simmons, who we did not meet or know anything about until they were already out in the field battling aliens. And I was like, they're like, oh, Simmons. I was like, who's Simmons? Where did this guy come from? Of course, exactly. Simmons, played by Taylor Hanley. I looked a little bit more into him because I was like, this guy seems a little familiar. We just covered a movie he was in recently. He plays Jason in Bird Box, who is the guy who ran out of the house with his wife and became a speed bump.
You know what? Funny you should say that. Another familiar face was in it. And yes, we covered a movie last week that he was in. There is a company captain that is giving them, basically he's briefing them on everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
E. Roger Mitchell played Detective Wright in The Black Phone.
Oh, nice.
And when I saw him, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's from The Black Phone. Funny how we have that connection. So it's kind of cool. There's also, Lucas Till is in this playing Scott Grayston. Grayston, who?
Yeah,
right. I don't remember seeing him. I don't think he had a speaking role. I think he was just there.
Yeah. Then Taylor Hanley, Simmons, again, going back to the Disney Channel stuff, he starred in maybe one of the best DComs, Disney Channel original movies. It came out in 2000, way back. So 22 years ago. Phantom of the Megaplex. What a fun one.
Oh my goodness. Pake, I know you like to cover movies like that on this podcast. It probably doesn't fit our genre unless you want it to. I
don't think so.
Okay.
But it was funny to be like, who is this guy? Just kind of going through, and then I was like, okay, he was in Bird Box. Okay, he's that guy. He was barely in it. And then just going through his IMDb, and I was like, oh my god, he's the kid from Phantom and the Megaplex. I was like, that's cool.
I feel like maybe this list of actors is just a who's who of other TV shows that we've watched in the past, because Jim Perrick, who played Peter Kearns, he was in a little show called True Blood, and he played Hoyt Fortenberry. Was a pretty major character throughout the entire series. So, yeah, it really is a who's who.
So, without recapping, breaking down too much, but yeah, the team is deployed. They're heading out to deal with this alien invasion. Did mention Lockett throwing a little bit of shade. That's the first time he really gets a word in with Nance, as far as Nance can see. He's like, is there something on your mind? And he's like, no, I'm fine. But then he follows it up. He goes, you got a silver star. My brother got sent home in a box. I see how it is.
Yeah.
Which, sure, take that jab when you can. If it makes you feel better. Nance is professional enough, I guess, to just let it roll off. And then that's when they're on the plane, or the helicopter, taking their way over, and Linehan sees the seriousness of what's going on. He's just watching the rest of his team preparing for death as calmly as imaginable, as possible. Whether it's praying or moving their dog tags to their shoes. So he says he's putting that there so if his head gets blown off, they can still, identify the body. It's like, wow. And he's like, oh shit, this is real. Martinez is writing his letter to his wife. Yeah, things are definitely getting real at that point.
And Linehan was the one who his mom signed off so he could join at 17.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what he thought he was signing up for.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure none of them thought we're going to be dealing with an alien invasion, and that's what's going to be happening.
Mm-hmm.
But this really, I feel like all of this took him by surprise. Like, he was not, I don't think this is what he thought this was going to be at all.
Yeah. So the main mission that they find themselves on, because you're like, well, how is this team going to go in and just like shoot at aliens for almost 2 hours? You know, a little over 2 hours or whatever. It's like, is that what they're doing? But no, they spread some of them out as just kind of gunmen, but really their main mission is to get to this police station where they have heard that there are civilians held up, or hold up more.
And they don't know how many are there.
Yeah.
So they send this entire group.
Yeah. They just know there's these civilians that are there that need somebody to find them, secure them. Then they will bring in a rescue team, helicopters, to pull the soldiers and the civilians out. Which then when the helicopter gets there and it's like, we could take 4 people. It's like, wow, you sent all of us. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You told us to go here and that you would send helicopters. So I don't know why then when you send the helicopters, there's not enough room. Somebody missed a decimal point in the paperwork somewhere.
They only have room for the wounded at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But once they get there, I guess there's really no other way to say it. Shit goes down. Shit goes down.
Yeah, the movie really made a point to weed out all the nameless characters. Very quickly. Grayson was probably one of them. Whoever that was.
He was. Yep. So going into this, they know they have 3 hours to go in and get whoever is at the police station, because they're going to level Santa Monica. They show them on a map. This is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And they go into this residential area. They're walking through like, okay, well, there's a lot of smoke and everything. And they meet Glenn the dog, who comes out to say hi.
Dog, 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 dog.
But then shit goes down. And Martinez is like lost.
I do love, as they're moving through before the dog shows up, because I have my captions on when I do podcast notes, because I want to make sure I catch all the dialogue. And so we get the caption of the sound of, and the caption says, creature clicking. And I was like, you can only imagine the grin that spread across my face, because I love creatures. It's kind of one of the reasons this podcast exists, right?
Yes. Yes.
So to see that caption, I was like, ooh, here we go.
They're not going to wait. We're going to get to see it.
Yeah. And then the creature was Glenn the dog. No, there was another creature that came after that. There's a lot of creatures that came after that.
Yeah.
After lots of explosions and gunfire that burns people. Yeah, like you said, or as Emily likes to say a lot, shit hit the fan.
Shit hit the fan, yeah. And this is where you could really see the difference between Nance and Martinez. Nance is this guy who, as we've talked about, is close to retirement. Martinez is really still, he's partway through his career. His experiences or going to school have not trained him for this.
Mm-hmm.
He was not prepared for what was going to happen.
It was an ambush that they really walked themselves into, and then he's stunned, and I led us into that ambush. He's putting things on himself. A lot of what they're doing to Nance is putting things on him. But Martinez, I think at this point, I think the story between Martinez and Nance, where, Martinez takes him on and is like, yes, I know the stories, but I'm in charge of him. Mm-hmm. So this is on me. I have to be better than he is. And I think Martinez, through the things that he experiences in this movie before he dies, lead to the fact why he sacrifices himself, but he forgives Nance at that last moment where he's like, no, you did the right thing before. You're doing the right thing again. Let me have this. You take care of that team. And I think he understands Nance a lot more.
Definitely.
Through his arc. Understanding, this is what it means to be a leader. Sometimes things just go bad. As Nance says later in the movie, he's like, whether you go left or whether you go right, it doesn't matter. It's still going to go bad.
And I feel like Nance helped pull things out of Martinez because he didn't just give in or tell him what to do. He basically is like, orders. You tell us what to do. He goes to him and he pushes him to make decisions. Because otherwise he's in a room by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And Nance just keeps pushing him, waiting for orders, waiting for what they need to be doing. What is the next thing that we should do? You're in charge. And that is something that I think Martinez struggled with, especially at the beginning, because he just didn't have the experience for this. I think the others in the platoon got to see, too, how difficult it is to make these decisions. That things aren't so simple.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as Nance deciding to leave his people behind and losing soldiers. Things happen that force you to do things and make impossible choices.
Yeah. And they do, after the ambush, they're able to hole up in one place. Linehan is separated, so they got to go back out to find him, and then there's just more ambush after the other. I mean, for some reason, the more they communicate, the aliens tend to know where they are. Makes me think of another movie that we covered that might not have been that good, but something about aliens who can really focus in on electronic signals.
Yes, I think I know where you're going there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Linehan didn't have huge problems until he turned his radio on again. As soon as he did, there was something coming into that laundry room after him.
Yeah.
So that was the first glimpse.
Yeah.
Having seen this before, I could look for the clues. Like, I was looking for these things, like how it was coming about, how they were figuring these things out.
Yeah. Or like when Santos said, like, they seem to have our address. And then, of course, they're on the walkies with Stavro and Harris as they go to get the bus. I'm skipping ahead a little bit and we'll come back. But as you're talking about, those things that you really notice is like, there's a lot of walkie communication during this bus mission. And then, of course, was it Lockett and Kearns that were up on the top, and they're like, all of the aliens seem to have just like turned in or heading this way now. How did they figure that? Like,
yep.
It's like, because you're talking to your teammates over the radio a bunch.
Yes. That was like another situation where that came, started to come to fruition. And then they really get it when they're driving the bus and they're up for another ambush again. They realize what's going on. Nance tells them to turn their radios off. He grabs one and goes out and uses it as a decoy to get the aliens away from the bus.
It was super badass.
It was.
Yeah. Skipped a little bit to get to that, but that's okay.
I know.
We'll circle back around. It's fine.
Okay.
Talk about that in a little bit. But yeah. Because, of course, they have to move towards the police station where they're heading. Of course, let's see. So there are other things. People keep getting injured. People keep getting shot. They run into Santos and her team, who one of them was Harper, I believe. I don't know which one it was.
I have no idea who any of her team were except her. I think
just her.
She was great. That's all.
Yeah,
that's all I need to know. She was fantastic.
Right.
She seemed to have a clue about stuff that was happening.
Although she wasn't, she was a soldier, but she was not like a combat forward soldier. She was more on the tech side of things. And,
yes.
But she knew what she was doing. You still have to go through the same training, I'm sure. So she knows what she's doing.
Well, and she went out, on a recon mission, basically, to find out if something that they thought was happening was actually happening.
Yeah. But they do get to the police station. It was almost a bust, but they do find the civilians. There's just 2 adults, 3 kids. We have Joe Rincon, played by one of my favorite people on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Michael Pena.
He was great in this. He really was.
Yes. Then there's also, and his son Hector, and then there's Michelle and her, who's a veterinarian, and her 2 nieces, Kirsten, and I don't know the other one.
Amy. Thanks, Wikipedia.
Right. Which Joey King is Kirsten.
She's
great. She's
gone
on to do a lot. She likes to work with Zach Braff on his projects a lot now.
Oh, really?
Or really more, he likes to work with her. He likes to cast her on the stuff that he's directing.
She's done a lot of different types of shows, and she's not afraid to go the extra mile for whatever she's trying to do. Because she was in that movie about, I can't remember the title, but she and Patricia Arquette were in a movie together about a woman who was telling her daughter she was sicker than she actually was.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it either. It was was it a movie? It was like a series.
It was a series. It was on Hulu.
It was on Hulu, yeah.
Yeah, and she actually shaved her head for the role. Like, she is not afraid to do whatever it takes to really go the extra mile for the role that she's doing.
Yeah. But, so they get there, then the helicopter comes in, and we talked about that, where it's only room for the wounded, so they throw, which Guerrero got shot in the helmet, and it kind of singed half of his face. I was kind of, as he's like walking around, it's like they bandaged him up, like covering both eyes. I don't know how that's helpful at all. I don't know how that is helpful. Seems like that could have been done in a better way. But sure. So it's just the wounded. So really, they got Guerrero, Simmons, and Linehan. The chopper team is refusing to take civilians, even the kids. And then we learn the aliens do have aircraft. R.I.P. everyone on the chopper.
Yep. Grayston was on there as well.
Oh,
so they
Grayston.
Lost 4.
That guy.
That guy.
Sure.
Lucas still played someone without lines. But yeah. So, yeah, he was the 4th one. And devastated. I mean, Martinez loses it. Like, he just loses it after that. Again. Because it's, this is a difficult thing. They're starting to realize, as a whole, all of them are starting to realize this is very serious shit. Mm-hmm. And there's a good chance that they won't make it out alive.
Right, yeah. It's, honestly, it since this was my first time watching it, it was kind of at this point. I was there in the police station. The helicopters are gone. They realize, like, they have nothing. Like, their air teams can't do anything because now there's aircraft from the aliens. I have a note in here that says, I'm honestly completely at a loss for how they're supposed to stand a chance here. I'm intrigued for sure, because right now it's full-on annihilation.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know where you go from here. So I was very intrigued to see what they put together. Also, with a lot of this intensity and kind of unsureness of, like, how do they get out of this? We mixed that with the scene of Joe bringing his son, Hector, to meet and thank Nance. And I was like, that was actually really cute. I did enjoy that.
I liked that a lot. Thanking him for coming to get them. Because, I mean, 5 civilians, of course, they thought there were probably more. But they sent a whole platoon to go in there to get however many that there were. And trying to get them out of there. Because otherwise, they would have just probably... Well, nothing would have happened. Because they didn't end up bombing.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, because they know they don't have much time, and they don't have a helicopter. Nobody's sending anymore.
Yeah.
So they've got to go on foot and get out of this blast radius before the bombs drop, at least with the time they're supposed to. So the bus is kind of their best option, while we have the Stavro and Harris going after the bus. Nance is pulling one of the aliens that is injured but still alive inside the police station. So they figure they might be able to find a weak point to help with fighting the others. And it was really interesting the way, because I was excited to finally see one up close and really see what they were.
Yeah.
It's been kind of just like little glimpses before.
Yeah.
And it's still strange because they're like a cyborg.
Yes.
Because there is flesh to them.
Yeah.
But it's also very mechanical. There's a lot of electronic parts to them. And even mentions that there are weapons that are surgically attached to it. So it's...
Yes.
Like, almost like a enslaved race forced to fight for... It's very interesting.
It made me think of Tomorrow War.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when they made them go into the future. Like, it made me think of that. One of my notes is they're much more mechanical, less organic. They actually, to me, look like they were broken down junk at times. Mm-hmm. Like, things didn't look really cohesive. Yeah. They look like, parts were hanging off or
a
whatever.
valve here, a gear there.
Yeah. Like, okay, we're going to assemble an army. They all need to look alike, but we may not be able to finish them 100%. So once you get down to the little parts, just throw on whatever makes sense.
Is that we got a blender stuck to its ass? It's fine. It's
fine. It works. It works.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's Michelle there says, I can totally help dissect this alien because I'm a veterinarian, so I can do that.
She wanted to help. I mean, yeah. And I get that, and I feel like she was the best with the kids. Like, she was the one that was paying all the attention to the kids, making sure that they were not seeing some of the stuff that was going on.
She does have a fun line there on the bus later that was like, I thought you were a doctor. She's like, animals and aliens only.
Yeah.
It's just fun. But yeah, they find... Which we will learn, because at first I was like, I think maybe still that these aliens can communicate telepathically or some other kind of connection, because they are almost like a hive mind in a way.
They are, yeah.
Of course, then also drawn by the electronic signals and things like that too. But Nance does find where to kill the aliens. It's this very small spot to the right of the heart they keep talking about, under a bunch of tough skin that's usually under a bunch of even tougher armor. So yeah, sounds like a breeze. Super easy. Barely an inconvenience.
Oh my god!
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, that's how you killed him. Because you're totally going to be able to just fire off shots in that very small specific area.
Yes. Lucky shots, basically, yeah.
Right.
I did think it was funny, though, when... they were trying to figure out how they were going to get the bus to run, and so Nance is like, who can hotwire a bus? And Harris is like, Stavro can, he's from Jersey, sir. And along he went to do that. I just thought that was funny.
And then, yeah, we talked about a little bit, Nance, when they realize what's going on with the electronic signals, radio silence is kind of where they have to go from there, and then Nance is super badass. He said he pulls that ship that was searching for them away by setting up that radio with the feedback going off right there by the gas pumps, then throwing a grenade when the ship got to right there to blow the whole thing up, which is super cool.
That's some real John Wayne shit, Staff Sergeant.
Yeah, it was really gutsy of him to walk up and inspect it, the downed aircraft, to find out it's a drone, no alien flying it, and then, yeah, some real John Wayne shit. And I'm assuming by that he means... like cowboy shit,
Yeah.
Super, super cool fighting stuff, not the racism and white supremacy.
No. No, cowboy shit that a hangman would do.
Right. So when I hear John Wayne, I'm like, you don't want to be like that guy. But, does that make cowboy, tough guy? Sure. But leave out, like I said, all the racism and white supremacy. Don't.
Yeah. Don't go down that road. Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's kind of the beginning, even though it does take another dip, of the redemption arc for Nance, is when the team sees this, they kind of love and trust him a little bit more. It's building, but there definitely will still be another kind of face-off between him and Lockett later on.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
At this point, they had about 40 minutes left before Santa Monica was going to get toasted. So they kept track of, how much time they had in between all of these things. And then also Santos reveals that part of her mission was to provide the AIS with strike package coordinates because they wanted to find the command and communication center. Like that was what they needed to do. That's why she was there.
Yeah.
And one thing that, it wasn't funny, but to me it was kind of funny, is they were driving on the bus and then they realized the exit they wanted was gone.
Right.
And so they were going to take the next one. And so I wrote down, the next exit is coming up until it isn't, because it blows up right in front of them pretty much.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Your exit will arrive in point to... Never mind.
It's gone. Bye-bye, exit.
Yeah. So, yeah, freeway was the only option. But they're out in the open. It's in bad shape. It's just, they're going to mix it up with some aliens again. That's what's got to go on. And, they've got to get the civilians underneath the freeway, kind of get them off, let them rappel down, and it just becomes chaos.
Yeah.
Taking heavy fire. They're doing a pretty decent job until the aliens brought out some kind of giant walker thing that's...
it reminded me of a mini version of that thing in Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of this like AT-AT kind of thing.
Yeah.
Man, AT-ATs. Was tiny and really packed a punch. Not tiny, it was tinier than one of those, but it was still pretty big. But yeah, packed a big punch. And then just another little... The moments between Nance and Hector, I liked. Because there's another one of those little ones. The getting the civilians ready and just, without even thinking, like just afterthought, he just ties Hector's shoe because he knows they're about to have to run.
Safety
and it's
first.
Like, my heart.
Because he's paying attention. Like he doesn't have kids of his own.
Mm-hmm.
But he's paying attention.
Yeah.
Like it's the little things. He's just not... He's just different.
Yeah. And yeah, so chaos ensues on the bridge. Car gets blown up by the walker thing and lands on a guy. I thought we were out of red shirts, but there's that guy. So I was like, and it lands on that guy. Oh no.
I think it was someone from Santos's unit.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. In this, we lost Stavro in this.
Mm-hmm.
Imlay and Santos were on top of that garbage truck.
Bridge chaos.
The bridge chaos.
Stabs getting blowed up. Saving Santos, but yeah, a lot of jumping off and exploding vehicle situations between that and then Lockett with the other one.
There were a few deaths and then there were near-death experiences during this time.
Martinez got hit with some major shrapnel, which was kind of... he was like, oh, I'm fine. And then you look at it and you're like, oh. That's good. Not fine.
No.
It's the opposite of fine, my dude.
Yeah.
Motorola got shot and killed. Then Joe goes and gets Motorola's gun. Takes out an alien, but then gets shot himself. Doesn't die then, but later. Which is so sad. But yeah, just chaos. The Walker Blaster is what I'm going to call it. Does get taken down temporarily, but then it just like rises back up and keeps going. You're like, oh my god, I can't catch a break. Can't win here.
Yeah, we had seen Nance and Martinez interact throughout this movie, and this, of course, was getting to the end of their relationship. Because there was one other time after they lost the platoon members that were on the helicopter, Nance had basically given him another pep talk about, you go left, I need a decision, go left or go right, I don't care. You have to make a decision. Like, he's not the first one to lose men and he won't be the last.
Yeah.
He needs to make a decision. Like, go left, go right, I don't give a damn, just make a decision. And after Nance has done his little cowboy shit, it kind of solidified their relationship, I think, with Martinez as well. And Martinez realizes that he's going to have to make a sacrifice, and he trusts Nance to be able to get everyone to safety.
Yeah.
Because they're pinned down. They don't have a choice.
And Nance doesn't want to leave him behind to blow himself up. Again, I think it's a lot of battling with what happened with that last team. And a lot of those things where he's like, am I going to be the survivor again of something like this? But Martinez assures him it is okay. This is the orders that he's giving him. And they come to an understanding. And Martinez does blow himself up and the bus with a bag of C4, which takes out the gaining aliens. Thank God it was successful. Walker, I mean, everything was good there. But then it doesn't stay good for Nance, because immediately I was like, ugh.
The whispers.
You hear Lockett and Emily talking about, did he just leave Martinez behind to die? Oh, so, it's that's what he does. And here comes the dogs again. And it's just like, man, the patience that this staff sergeant has to not just go off on them,
I know, because he hears it. It's not like they're keeping a secret. they're doing it right in front of him. And, they take cover in this makeshift base that everything had been destroyed in.
Yeah, after the bombs don't go off.
Yeah.
And they've got to make the rest of their trip, which then Santos is talking about more again about the command and control center and what they need to do. But yeah, the bombs don't go off. And they're like, what does that mean? It's like either we don't need them anymore or everything got overrun and it is just foobar. And then, when they reach there, FOB is gonzo.
Yeah. Santa Monica Airport, toast. There's nothing there that can help them with regard to aircraft.
Yeah. But they reconvene there for a little bit, and that's when Joe dies, and it was really sad, and it did affect me a little bit because
I thought it might.
It had some great moments. Again, I love Michael Pena, but he just had a good his conversations with Nance and kind of the relationship with his son there. I was like, this is just rough.
Yeah. I loved what he said to Hector. And this is kind of a summarization of what he said. Your father was a brave man, Hector. I'm sorry, buddy. It's okay to cry. He loved you very much. I need you to be brave for me. I need you to be my little Marine. We gotta be brave for the others. You know why? Because Marines don't quit. So he showed this kindness. And he went to Hector right after. I mean, he was trying to figure something else out. Goes straight to Hector as soon as he finds out that Joe has died.
Mm-hmm.
And then we realize there are 7 of them left. There's Nance, Santos, Harris, Lockett, Kearns, Imlay, and Doc. That's who you have left out of this big platoon.
Mm-hmm.
And Nance is furious and says, we are not losing another civilian. And I'm thinking, good, because you've got 1 adult and 3 kids.
Yeah.
But that's when Lockett finally says, you getting us out too, Staff Sergeant?
Yeah, or are we just disposable?
But that is when Lockett and Nance have the showdown that they've needed to have the entire time. But I also think they needed the time that it took to get to it, because I think Nance grew and Lockett saw what Nance was doing, and even though he was frustrated, he still knew that Nance had done some things. And that's when Nance really stands up to him and just says, let's go there.
Yeah, that scene might have been the most emotional for me. That one, it got me good. My emotions! With him after the let's go there, and he tells Lockett, that he's constantly reminded of and living with what happened. Says that he lost good men, but he did what he could. And then what really got me, I was like, why are my eyes wet? Is where the point is he makes that point to then list off every single one of their names, ranks, and numbers. Ending, of course, on Lockett's brother. I was like, damn, what's going on? My eyes are leaking. We got a problem.
Yeah, it really got me when he said, your brother was an outstanding Marine. He was my friend, and I miss him every day. And you remind me of him. That was it. That was it. Because while he's stating the names and ranks and numbers, Lockett just at first looks a little surprised. And then as he goes through all of them, he starts to realize they weren't just numbers to him. They weren't just replaceable items to him. They were people he cared about. They were kids.
Mm-hmm.
He even says, do you think for a second I wouldn't have traded places with them? They're dead. I'm here, like the punchline to some bad joke, which you said earlier. So he thinks of them often. I feel like Nance and Lockett after that were on the same page.
Yeah.
They find out they need to make it to this pickup point because they are able to communicate with a landline, because that's the only way you can communicate without the alien technology interfering. and they're able to make it to the pickup point.
Yeah, there's a few aliens, that they run into on the way, but they just plow through those mofos.
I know, that was they had fun with that, and I felt like, you know what? It's about damn time they got to have a little bit of enjoyment, because it's been a shitty ass day for them.
Right. Santos got splashed in the face a little bit.
Yeah.
Gotta love Michelle Rodriguez.
She was a bright spot in this movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was really tough. And even though she wasn't out in combat, when she was on top of the garbage truck with Imlay and Stavro, at first they were just kind of like making room for her, but when she started shooting, they were just like, you're welcome to be right here, because she was a really good shot.
Yeah.
So they gave her a lot of respect after that.
Yeah, so like you said, they do make it to that evac point, get on the chopper. They do get some power interference from the alien command and control center, which then Nance decides he has to take care of this while the opportunity's here. They are all that is left. Convinces the pilot to drop him off so he can go after it alone, get everybody else to safety. But of course, he leaves Imlay in charge, and then he takes it out, drops down the rope, gets there, and as he's about to take off, the rest of the team come down right behind him, which was honestly a very powerful moment. I was like, yeah, this is after everything they've been through, they've finally seen that growth through Nance to where this was the point where it turned, where they will follow and trust their leader.
Yeah. And when they were on the chopper, Imlay was looking out and saw this big dead area where basically there was no power of any kind. It was just black. And then they figure out that that's probably where the command center is.
Mm-hmm.
So Nance gets it in his head that he needs to go check it out. Because they had found out when they got on the chopper that everyone was just going to pull out of LA. Like they were not going to fight anymore. And I think after everything they had been through, he just didn't want to just give up. He wanted, he felt like they had a chance to do something.
Yeah, it was, the civilians did get out safely, but then the whole team went back to finish their job. Retreat hell.
Yeah. Yeah, they went to investigate. I did have a question, though.
Uh-huh.
It was pitch black outside.
Yeah, when they come back up, it was daylight again.
Yeah, how did it become day so fast? About 15 question marks.
Yeah, I have no clue. Like, how long were they at? I guess it depends, because the bombs didn't land. Maybe we don't get a clear picture of how long they were at the Air Force, or like the FOB, the airport. Maybe they were there for a while, with Joe dying and all this stuff going on. Maybe they kind of spent the whole night there and then found this evac closer to morning. I don't know.
But I guess, because this looked like broad daylight, like noon.
Right. Because they go underground, they find the control center, and they realize they have to go back up. And when they come up, looks like the middle of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was an observation and a little complaint. Like, I don't know how the hell. I mean, they've been moving pretty good throughout this whole movie, but then we get to that and it just seems like, did you just fast forward? Or did you just decide, this would all be better in the daylight? Okay. So we'll fast forward to daytime?
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But then there we have, good thing they have Santos with them, because they're let in on kind of her initial plan as this strike force situation. You're going to do an airstrike on this control center. Kearns is the one that's going to make the call out to the strike. He gets blown up, so that was...
Yeah, obliterated is what I wrote down. But I don't think he turned his radio off. It looked like he made that call, and he didn't turn the radio off, he just set it down. Mm-hmm. I don't think that helped. I feel like it needed to be turned off.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets this great shot and is so excited, and then he turns around and I mean, we've seen that in movies before where you think everything is going to be good, and there's the villain that just pops up behind you, and it's over.
Yeah. But, then they have the 3 minutes before the strike gets there to hold a laser on the control center and hold off the enemies. But the strike does go through, blast the control center, and then Harris is like, "It's over," and I was like,
No.
I even me watching this the first time, I'm like, I think you're jumping the gun there a little bit.
You are.
Just a tad. Yeah, because the first missile hits, then the alien ships, these drones come up, and they're trying to relocate the control center, so they have to keep fighting and hope that one of the other missiles that comes in off the strike hits center mass. They get 2 more. One is just taken out by another drone. So to sum it up without breaking down the movie, where bit by bit, through lots of teamwork, struggle, and maneuvering, they get the job done.
Yeah. If one drops the laser, the other one picks it up. They take care of each other and just keep things going.
Yeah. And they do. They disable all of the drones, so it's just the ground troops. And they actually do get the aliens to retreat. And now that they have that trick known, they can take that strategy global. Maybe there's a chance for Earth. Yay.
Reminds me of another movie where we shared everything across the world. Through Morse code, I believe.
And then kind of there at the end, the team is offered rest, but instead they just gear up and head back out, which, I don't know, I probably wouldn't have done that, but good for them, I guess.
No, I wanted breakfast. I was ready for the breakfast.
I don't know, breakfast and some sleep sounded like a good idea after all that.
I'm like, you've been up for about 48 hours. You probably need to go to sleep. Maybe 48 hours. I feel like it was 48 hours. Maybe it was only 24 hours. They've been up a really long time.
Yeah.
I felt like it was bedtime.
Yeah.
At least get some rest before you go out there and do something. You don't want to go out there half asleep.
Right.
Or maybe they just were on adrenaline.
But yeah. So that is all of my notes as far as the characters. All of them. Because we just threw everything together in one go, which I knew was going to happen.
I feel like we have to with this one because of the way that it's constructed. And there have been movies before that we've had to do that with, because it's kind of like a muddled character mess.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many people. But I feel like, Pake, we did Nance's story justice. I feel like we did Nance's and Martina's, their arc justice. It's just, there's a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
It moves the entire time. There's no downtime, really. It just is a constant, chaotic, frantic movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess the only other notes I have, just the aliens themselves, which we talked about a lot of that already. Other than just, you didn't really mention the scene of, the one that Linehan got knocked, kind of taken out of hiding from, when he's in the laundry room, and he gets in this little firefight with it. And that's when you see, they're like robots and hard to kill, because he shot it a bunch and it fell in the pool. And then it jumped back out and it got shot a whole bunch more and it fell in the pool. And they got grenaded. And I was like, well, hopefully that did it at that point. But we don't really get much of why the aliens are here other than just the speculation. We get the news broadcasts where it's like, they're taking our water, because it seems like that's what, their fuel, themselves, their machines, their whatever. It's all just taking over natural resources, but really just the water from Earth.
Yeah. Because water for them runs everything. I feel like that was it. And they also talked about colonization. I feel like they were here to take over the Earth as a new residence for themselves. And it didn't matter. I mean, they talked about it that anytime someone goes to colonize something, they usually wipe out whoever is living there before.
Damn intergalactic colonizers.
Yes. It's just crazy. Well, I feel like we have made it through this entire movie. So it's time for me to share some of the behind the scenes things that I found out. And there are a few items of note in here. So I'm just going to get started.
All right.
So Jonathan Liebesman made an early decision, the development of the film, to not film it in 3D because of the amount of handheld shots in action. He thought it would be too much for the audience. But he did want that frantic, frenetic feel in the film. But he also wanted the aliens to act like Marines in an organized army-like fashion, and I feel like he achieved that. Because they did seem well organized as far as they had someone in charge. And then they were out killing everyone. It seemed pretty well organized. Marines from Camp Pendleton helped train the actors for their roles, educating them in the Marine lifestyle. A number of actual Marines also appear as extras in the film. And to thank them, they got a sneak preview of the film at Camp Pendleton on March 3rd, 2011. So there were more than 1,000 visual effects shots in this movie, with more than 10 companies contributing to the film. Each had a particular scene or part of the film as their project. For instance, Spin VFX created the practical alien for the autopsy scene, while Hydraulics focused on the freeway battle, and Cinesight worked on the shots involving the infantry aliens and the commander. While Liebesman tried to use practical effects whenever possible, although green screen and CGI were also used, as we've talked about, such as for the explosion, 90% of the aliens are computer generated, as the director felt they would be too difficult to achieve any other way. I think he's right. Mm. I also think we did not get a good close-up of the alien other than the autopsy.
Yeah.
I feel like the fog and everything, it was like a lot of smoke and mirrors. Because they looked fine because we weren't like right up to the screen with them. So I think that's smart for the way that they did it. The aliens were designed by Paul Gerard, who made them to appear very alien, neither arthropod nor vertebrate. They look at us like we look at ants. Liebesman wanted the aliens to appear to function like a real army, as I said, complete with medics and different ranking officers, and using tactics such as taking cover to protect themselves. Aaron Eckhart actually broke his arm while filming a stunt, but he didn't miss any filming because of it. In fact, he has said that this was the most fun out of all the movies he's filmed, and that was as of 2011. So the character of Santos was not in the film until about a month before shooting began, so she was a late addition. A first-person shooter video game developed by Live Action Studios and published by Konami was released on Xbox Live Arcade March 11, 2011. The online game service, as part of its Play Pack subscription service, was made available to subscribers on March 15th and on the PlayStation Network on March 22nd. Eckhart reprised his role for the game.
That's cool.
There were a number of continuity errors with regard to Nance and his various weapons. There was a lawsuit due to the same special effects guys, Hydraulics, doing some of the work on a movie called Skyline while this movie was in post-production. I've seen Skyline. It's one we should cover because I think it could be a really fun podcast.
All right.
It reminds me of another movie we covered with Mark Wahlberg.
Oh.
It's that, yeah. Yeah, it's one of those conversations, I think. And of course, Asylum released their own film called Battle of Los Angeles, starring Nia Peoples and Kel Mitchell. Yes, Kel of Kenan and Kel. And that's what I have for you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It was a fun one.
Yeah. Oh, it's that feedback phone. It's time.
Gotta check that out. Let's see what we got. All right, we do have some feedback this week. We actually got a lot of feedback of just kind of quick congratulations and things like that on our post this week about it being our 2-year anniversary recently. And so I don't have to read a bunch of congratulations over and over, but I really, everyone who posted on there and commented on that, we really appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, it means a lot to us. I can't believe that it's been 2 years, but I'm so excited for the next 2 years and beyond, because we have tons of movies to cover.
Oh yeah, still so much to do.
So much to do. Oh my gosh.
But we do have our usual feedback from other movies, although, strangely enough, we don't have any feedback for this movie, for Battle Los Angeles, yet, but that's okay. Again, if you guys want to send stuff in a little bit later, next week, whatever, we will still read that, because we're always cool with feedback for any movie. At any point, as you'll see, we're going back to the beginning of the season for some of these in a little bit, so
yeah,
not a problem at all. But I'll go ahead and kick them off. The first one is for The Black Phone. It's kind of a follow-up of another conversation we had, because it is Tony following back up because she mentioned Sinister. And so she wanted to say, hi, Pake and Daphne. I just listened to your coverage, and I wanted to let you know that you can find Sinister on Peacock. I think it falls into the genre that you cover. It is a demon, not a monster. A lot of ghosts and creepy. I know it has a lot of problems, but overall good.
All right. Well, Tony, you know what? Just for you, I think I'm going to add it to next season.
Yeah, we'll look at it. It's a movie I actually have not seen, but have wanted to. So
yeah,
that's usually a good way to do that, is for the podcast.
Yeah,
gets me to watch stuff.
It does. I think about all the movies that we've covered and the ones that I hadn't seen or you hadn't seen, and I feel like the ones that you hadn't seen definitely outnumber the ones that I haven't seen. But you have introduced me to some good ones.
Yeah.
But we're going to save that conversation for our look back special, which will be coming up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we're getting near the end of the season.
We are. I can't believe it. So next up, Tarkus. Thank you so much for responding to some of our tweets on prior movies that we've covered this season. It's great to have you back with us and sharing your thoughts. So Tarkus sent something in for Ready or Not. He said, I was not liking this movie at all during the first part. I thought the premise was silly and hated the way everyone so easily accepted it. Once the action started, though, I loved it. That ending was just crazy good, too. And yes, Samara Weaving was and is awesome.
Yeah.
We need her to do more movies that fit in this genre because, yeah, we love her.
Yeah, love talking about her. So we've done 2 so far, and she's shown very bright in both very easily.
Yes, definitely.
And then we do have one more from Tarkus as well, catching up on other movies. This one for The Girl with All the Gifts, saying, thanks for putting this movie on my radar. I don't remember hearing about it before and only looked into it because I saw you had covered it. I absolutely loved this movie. One of the most unique takes on the zombie genre, and now one of my favorites. Podcast was great too.
Thanks, Tarkus.
Thanks. That is awesome. I love hearing that, and I love hearing that you really enjoyed the movie, that we were able to bring that to you. That's really cool. And since you are such a huge fan of The Girl with All the Gifts, I'm going to go ahead and give you the tiniest of teases. Definitely stay tuned for a special episode coming up. I think you're going to really enjoy it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But I think so.
Definitely. We have to keep it a little bit of a surprise. And Tarkus, you should definitely check out the book if you haven't. And I'm still going through The Boy on the Bridge. And it's really good. I love the writing style, so it's awesome. So you definitely should check out both of those books. But if you would like to submit feedback like Tarkus and Tony, you can do so by going to our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Tweet at us at RFYL Podcast, or DM us on Instagram at runforyourlivespodcast. And if you are enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely we do. And of course, talk about sharing the love. Go ahead and give a couple shout outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us. My other podcast, Strange Indeed, we're still going strong with the final season of Lock and Key. We are halfway through now. And Yeah, even though if you listen to the newest episode, won't spoil things on that show on here on this podcast, but if you listen to our episode 4 coverage, I think I was still a little sore. I was like, man, are they going to get things moving? But I have watched episode 5. We'll record on that next week. They getting things moving, so we're good. We're happy. I'm happy. So, but yeah, we've been having a blast talking about it. So go check out our Lock and Key coverage over there. I said it's the final season, so I'm really intrigued by what they're doing and where they're going to go. In the Podcastica realm, outside of that, of course, the Walking Dead cast running with Tales of the Walking Dead right now. Episode 3 is out. They should be doing episode 4 after this weekend. So I have not watched 4 yet, but 3 was interesting. I really liked it. Every episode has been very different, so I like that they've been doing it that way.
Yeah. I like the different insights that we're getting into characters that we don't know and how they're dealing with the situation.
Right. Or characters we do know.
Or characters we do know. That's true.
And then other great Podcastica stuff. Of course, Mark and Jamie covering the Sandman on Sandman cast. Penny and Greg over on the She-Hulk cast. Rima and Kristen covering House of the Dragon on Dragon cast. And then, of course, the new one, which is out now. They did manage to get a screener, so they recorded early. So literally as the episodes dropped, they released the podcast episode. I think only covering the first episode. I don't think they've recorded on episode 2 yet, even though both episodes dropped. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Amazon's series, The Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings prequel kind of thing that's going on there, is out now. And yeah, the cast of The Rings with Anwen and Penny is out now. So you can go listen to that after you've watched Rings of Power.
Who better to talk about that than Anwen?
And she was in one of the Lord of the Rings movies.
She was. It's pretty amazing.
So yeah.
I'm so glad that she is doing it. She's so much fun. She has so much passion for the films and from being part of it. So I'm really looking forward to listening because I'm sure she has a lot to share.
Yeah. And so again, all those podcasts, most of them are on the House Podcastica feed. If not, then you just go to podcastica.com and you can get links to all of the podcasts. There's a lot on the network right now, a lot of great stuff going on, and more great stuff still coming very soon.
Oh, yes. One of those great things is getting recorded tomorrow night. So I'm very excited. It's coming back.
Yes, just give little teases. Handmaid's Tale, of course, what you're talking about is coming out again soon.
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai is coming soon. Andor will be covered on there, the new Star Wars series. Lots of great stuff coming up. So keep tuned for that for sure.
The number of podcasts on Podcastica is growing, as well as the number of hosts. So it's becoming a much bigger family, and it's really exciting. I love the discussion.
Yeah.
It's fun to listen to the hosts because they're really passionate about what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Of course, a couple other podcasts kind of outside of Podcastica, of course, but always great stuff. The Watched It in the 80s podcast, Damien and Alex are discussing Major League this week. Yeah, that Major League.
Have you seen it, Pake?
I actually haven't, and it's surprising.
Oh, man.
It's been on my list forever, and it's just like, I live way too busy of a life where now the only way to get me to watch a movie that's been on my list is to make me podcast on it.
Yes. Which I do, which I'm starting to do with the podcast that I'm planning. The movies that I'm thinking of for next season, it's like, okay, a lot of these Pake hasn't seen, but I like it because I usually have seen it, and it just brings different perspectives. It's a lot of fun.
TV podcast industries, they are always doing big work over there, of course. Lots of stuff always going on over there. Stay busy. Oh, they stay as busy as Podcastica. And it's the same hosts on everything over there. Man, Derek and John, and they're just, man.
They must always be podcasting. They're either prepping for the podcast, doing the podcast, editing the podcast. They must be just podcast 24/7.
Right, because currently they are working on Umbrella Academy, She-Hulk, and Sandman. So,
want
coverage for any of those, you can check all those out over at TV Podcast Industries. But lastly, of course, we got to give a little tease on what's going on next week, right here on Run for Your Lives.
Well, when a mass killer invades her private country life, Maddie Young, a deaf-mute horror author, uses everything available to her to fight back and survive against this threat. We are covering Mike Flanagan's 2016 film Hush, which stars Kate Siegel and John Gallagher Jr.
Yes. Those who know me know my love for Mike Flanagan goes deep. It's about damn time we cover some Flanagan on Run for Your Lives.
I know. It's long overdue. And this is a movie title. We've kicked this one around probably for the last 2 seasons. We've talked about, we should do that one. And finally, we just said, okay, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And so it fit into the schedule. And because the season is winding down, we only have a few episodes left before our 100th episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, not a lot of time left.
Yeah. It's a good time to get it done.
Yes, it is. And with that, we've reached the end of our podcast. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.